today's video, we are going to work to continue refining our model. And so now that we've kind of got our base materials and everything in, now we need to bring a little bit more life to it, a little bit more interest so that it doesn't feel kind of generic or just too plain where it's not really selling our design. So there's things that we can add that in general are called entourage. So this means adding like scaled figures or people so that it adds a little bit of depth and visually scales so that we can really kind of figure out how the space is intended to feel, because scale would be really important if we had like super high ceilings and we put in a scaled figure and you could really see how high those ceilings are or how much lower those ceilings are. And then we can add things like, oh, say a lamp or a piece of a flower arrangement here in the center of the table. So those are elements that we can add to our models to really finish them off. Now, I really highly recommend not doing any of the additional entourage until you have finished creating your model and getting everything how you want, because you got to be careful, especially if your computer is not super powerful. Entourage and little decorative things can really start to make your model size or the size of your file grow, especially if you do something with lots of polygons and faces and sides. So you just want to be mindful and use them in appropriate ways where it's not, because it's fun. It's almost like decorating a dollhouse. When you get to this point, you're like, oh, I could put books and I could put vases and I could put a lamp and you get really excited. But it can cause problems in all of a sudden your model starts lagging and getting really hard to kind of navigate around. So we got to pick and choose our battles. Now to add entourage, certainly you could always make something, but people have made tons and tons of stuff in our 3D warehouse. So 3D warehouse is the online kind of component, a system where you can go to find components and objects and things like that. So you do have to be connected to the internet. And for example, I've already done some searches and I have lamps and I have an orchid, like maybe I'm going to put an orchid here in the center of the table. And then I've also selected people. When I put people into my models, I often really only like to use silhouettes instead of, say, people with depth to them. Like this young lady here, while she's beautiful, she can sometimes, now I'm not saying actually she would probably go quite well in this dining room, but you really want to make sure that the people and items that you're adding really enhance your model and don't take away. I've had students do really fun things, like they'll put picture frames and it'll be like Bart Simpson or somebody in there, or some random like Easter egg, which is fun and it'll make me laugh. But it's one of those you don't want to detract from your model. You want to make sure you're really enhancing. So while she would actually work quite nicely in here, sometimes the colors of the people, you can modify them by editing them just like anything else, can just kind of take away. So I often, whoops, wrong model, use silhouettes of just kind of grayscale and find that works well. So you have to put in all different types of searches to sometimes get what you're looking for. You can put in people, silhouette people, so silhouette people came up with the search with what I want. So make sure that you've got it on models, because like, for example, if it was on the default of products, well, that's not really going to help you. So if I put in or click on models, it shows me a lot more options. And I like to do 2D flat people and not 3D, because again, 2D are a lot easier to manage in our models, and it's not difficult for the program to render them basically. And so from there, I can download one of these collections, and I'm going to make sure I select one for the appropriate year of my program. And it's going to open in a separate file, which is actually what I want, because I obviously don't want all of these people in here. And so you really have to sit there and figure out which ones could work best for your model. And actually, not really any of these work for mine per se. So that's kind of a bummer. Okay, so if that doesn't work, then I'll close that one out, go back to 3D Warehouse and see if I can find something else that does look a little bit more appropriate. Let's see. See, this is how it can get a little cartoony. And we really, I don't want that to happen. Let's see. They always have everybody with bags. Let's see, let's not. Oh, let's find. Sometimes it can take a little while and you'll find your favorite people when you're like, oh, this one translates well to a lot of different models. See if we can keep looking. We want somebody. She could work because she looks like she's explaining something or walking. Let's see. Okay, let's add her because she looks like she's walking. And we're going to have her open up. And we're just going to select it. I like to Command C or Control C and copy it, and then Command V or Control V and paste her. So the biggest thing is depending on what I am trying to illustrate, I will figure out where her placement seems to best work. So let's put her here and see how that kind of works. Notice she's going to rotate with the camera, which is nice. Actually, no, she doesn't. So if she doesn't rotate with the camera, that's okay. You can, let's see, she's not a, you can make a component and you could turn her into one and say always face camera. And that's what's nice is so that she rotates with us. Now you might have to, depending on when you save your scene, you might have to fix her so she's not like showing up inside your console there. But if she's just kind of walking into the room, that, and I can adjust her and she looks like she's kind of walking in between the console to the dining table. So that's starting to look nice. You could probably edit her and you change her opacity down a little bit if you don't like how dark she is. And again, there's nothing wrong with using this component as well. Like if you wanted to pull one of these type ladies in and have a male, like, and because you could have a foreground figure, you want to make sure their feet look normal. So you might have to come up just a little bit. So there we go. We don't look odd because she could work just as well. And I don't feel like she's bothering around. So you have to just determine like, what's the better look? Does the silhouette here look better? Or does it actually look better to have a little bit of detail? But again, try to stay away from the 3D people. That could actually just be super distracting. So then once we kind of have a couple people in here, and don't mix and match. I've got it mixed and matched just to illustrate for y'all, but you typically do not want to have one with pattern and color and then a silhouette in the same model. That gets a little weird. So then now I could determine, let's see, I could say, let's pick this one here. More like this one. This one fits more with our model. Download. So we're going to bring that entourage and it's going to open up the file and I'm going to Command C or Control C it to copy, Command V or Control V to paste. And we just, my computer's having to hang on. There we go. Now I've got to get on this a little bit to figure out like where the center of the table is, and I could get really perfect with it and do guides and stuff like that. And then I could decide, hey, How does that look scale wise? Is it too big? Is it too small? And that's the fun part about Entourage is you can always take the scale command, just kind of scale it up or scale it down a little bit. You want to make sure you select the whole thing though, and make it a group so that it scales together. Make sure, because we've got this one and this one. Yeah. Make group scale. There we go. Oh, so apparently there was another piece. Oh, that's that little, we could scale that too. But you get the idea. You can scale this. We fix that. And that starts to not be quite as large if you don't want it to be so big. So lastly, let's add, actually, let's not add a lamp because we have sconces here. So let's do maybe a vase on that back console. So let's do, let's find a vase, not a chia pet. Think of something. And you, again, make sure it feels like it's appropriate style wise and scale wise. Again, we can adjust scale a little bit, but maybe we go for something like this. Okay. Command C or Control C to copy. Command V or Control V to paste. And so I can play with this and I could determine, again, let's scale this maybe up a little bit. And then if you wanted, you could always make a copy of this. And you could rotate it and scale it and make it a little bit smaller so that it doesn't look perfectly the same. And make like a little trio or duo of them. You could add like a little small bowl, something here to just finish out this, but it just really starts to add some depth and some life to this. So from there, the last kind of thing we need to do to finish working on this area is adding a view out the window and some window treatments. So that will be in the next video.